The first insult wasn't even meant to hurt me. It was the way my sister slid a plain water glass across the white linen table. Not to me. To my son. No greeting. No hi. Just, we don't feed extras. And her daughters, those polished, perfect mirrors of her, waited for their lobster platters like royalty awaiting tribute. Theo swallowed hard. He didn't look at me. That was the part that cracked something in my chest. I didn't argue. I didn't even blink. I just smiled, breathed once, and said, "Noted. But let me take you somewhere else, just for a second. A memory. The kitchen lights. The stainless steel counters. The chalkboard of that little restaurant before it became a reservation-only sanctuary people scraped savings to visit. My sanctuary. The one nobody at that table knew belonged to me. Not yet. Back at Meridian, yes, that Meridian, the place people wait 3 months to touch a tablecloth. The air was warm with truffle, butter, and money. My sister Camille adored it. Not the food. Not the ambience. The stage. Camille performs best in dim lighting and expensive acoustics. And Mom adored watching her. Their favorite duet. Camille shines. Mom claps. I stand somewhere between the shadows and the bill. Venus, you'll love this place, Camille said earlier, stepping out of her SUV like she owned the pavement. Venus. My name tastes like a compliment in other people's mouths, but in hers it's always been a punchline. They have a chef who actually knows what he's doing. I could have told her I trained that very chef, that I built his menu, that this restaurant was my second child. But I just smiled. Quiet. Polite. Disposable. My assigned role. Theo walked beside me, too tall for his jacket, too kind for this world. 14 years old and still believing people mean what they say. He greeted his cousins. They didn't lift their eyes from their phones. Of course. Cut to the hostess leading us to a corner booth. Open kitchen in full view. Waiters moving like choreography. My choreography. Every single detail in this place. The marble bar, the ocean gray booths, even the spacing between tables was mine. Not that anyone noticed. Or cared. Mom placed herself at the head of the table like a queen fitting her crown. We're celebrating big accomplishments, she said. Ava glowed. Riley whispered dreams of dorm room aesthetics. Theo looked at his menu as if it were a shield. Camille ordered the most expensive wine and lobsters for her daughters. Then that pointed little smile toward me. I hope that's okay? The implication was louder than the restaurant. Do you even belong here? Can you afford to keep up? Don't embarrass us. It's your dinner, I replied. Exactly, she said, with teeth instead of lips. Jenna, the server, approached, confident but careful. I hired her myself months ago. Tonight, she didn't recognize me. Not without my apron. Not without my clipboard. Not without the authority she'd only seen in a kitchen, not at a dinner table. What can I get you all to drink? She asked. Before I could answer, Camille cut in again. Before I could protect Theo. Before the night could decide whether to break me again or finally bend in my direction. But the truth, the real truth, tonight didn't belong to Camille. Or Mom. Or the daughters with perfect hair and perfect futures. Tonight belonged to me. Because what they didn't know, what no one at that table knew, was that when the chef walked out of that open kitchen, everything they believed about hierarchy, about power, about me, was about to be rewritten. Let me tell you what people don't notice in expensive restaurants. The silence. Not the loud silence. The tight one. The one that hides behind every wine glass lift, every forced smile, every pass the bread. That was the silence sitting between us. Theo's hands. Before Camille even ordered wine, before the insults sharpened themselves into weapons, I'd noticed Theo's hands. 14-year-old hands, bigger than last year. Not yet a man's, still soft around the knuckles. Those hands were folded in his lap now. Still. Too still. Like he was trying not to exist. The wine order. Silver crushed Chardonnay, Camille declared, tapping the menu with a pen she didn't need. You'd think she was signing legislation. Jenna nodded, professional, polite. unaware she was walking into a family minefield. "And for you, sir?" she asked Theo. He tried. Bless him, he really did. "Sparkling water with lemon, please?" A simple request. A harmless, polite, 14-year-old request. But Camille was allergic to anything she didn't control. "He'll have tap water," she interrupted. "Regular glass." Theo blinked. A confusion first, then embarrassment, then something like shame trying to rise up his throat. It's fine," he murmured. Sparkling water, to Camille, was for honored guests. And Theo? He was an extra. A background character in her carefully curated performance. Ava and Riley didn't speak. They never do unless Camille scripts the lines. Jenna looked at me. She always did when something felt wrong. I gave a small nod, and she wrote down tap water. But every movement afterward felt stiff, unnatural, like the restaurant itself was uncomfortable. My mother broke the tension with a sentence she probably practiced in the mirror. "It's nice we're all together, even if some of us don't get to do this very often." Smooth delivery. Sharp edges. A paper cut disguised as affection. "Can I get the shrimp pasta? It looks really good." His voice was soft, hopeful. Childhood clinging to him like a last layer of innocence. Camille didn't even lift her eyes. "That's a bit much." "For what reason?" I asked, my voice cool level. "For tonight," she replied, folding her menu like a judge concluding a case. "This dinner is about the twins' achievements. Let's not overcomplicate things." Then the sentence that would replay in my head like a siren. "We don't feed extras." Time slows. The nearby table went quiet. Forks hovered midair. Even the restaurant music seemed to pull back, listening. Theo's eyes reddened. Not from tears. From trying not to cry. From trying to hold dignity with two trembling hands he had shoved under the table. Mom placed her wine down gently. The gentleness hurt more. Camille's right. We all have our place. There it was. The family thesis. The rule book I grew up memorizing. Camille, star. Mom, audience. Me, placeholder. My son, invisible. Something inside me clicked. Not anger. Precision. A switch flipping after years of being called less. Because if there's one thing I learned working in kitchens, heat is nothing compared to humiliation. And humiliation? I remember every bite. Jenna returns. She sat down. Crystal glasses for Camille. Crystal for my mother. Crystal for the twins. And then, the plain glass for Theo. The tap water made a tiny clink when it touched the wood. Small sound. Heavy impact. "Thanks," Theo whispered, not drinking. He knew drinking it made it real. I looked at Camille. Perfect manicure wrapped around her wine glass like it belonged in her hand since birth. And I said it again, softly. "Noted." She frowned. "What does that mean?" "That I heard you." She laughed, airy and clueless. "Good. Now, let's move on." But we weren't moving on. Not this year. Not this dinner. Not this lifetime. I had already decided. Their lesson wouldn't end at this table. Camille went back to talking about internships and college essays, her favorite Olympic sport. Performative competence. Mom nodded like she'd been waiting all week for this conversation. Meanwhile, Theo quietly traced circles in the condensation ring left by the glass he wasn't allowed to want. Trying to stay composed. Trying not to shrink. Trying to disappear with dignity. Jenna, again. She brought oysters, the first course. Camille waved her off, gesturing toward Theo's empty place setting. "He doesn't need one." Jenna froze. "Are you sure, ma'am?" Camille's tone sharpened like a knife sliding out of its sheath. "Positive." Jenna looked at me. I nodded once. Not permission, reassurance. "I've got it." "Not yet. Let it happen." She moved on, but her eyes held a quiet apology. She knew something was wrong. She also knew I was the kind of woman who handled storms, not started them. "Tell me when you're ready." Because the next section is where everything shifts. The chef walks out, and the entire table learns whose restaurant they've been disrespecting. The reveal. the silence, the reversal, the revenge that doesn't raise its voice. People think humiliation is loud. It's not. It's quiet, slow, a drip. Exactly like the tap water they handed my son, not because he wanted it, but because someone decided that was his worth. Camille chose this place to make a statement. What she didn't know was that the walls, the lamps, the kitchen, the whole heartbeat of the restaurant answered to me. "Mom, can we leave?" His voice was a thin thread, stretched tight. "Not yet." "But I'm not." "You will," I whispered. "Just wait." Something in his shoulders loosened. Trust is a fragile thing, but he still had mine, and I still had his. Lobster for the twins, of course. Sea bass for Camille, plated like an ego. Scallops for Mom, glowing under perfect lighting. Everything smelled of butter, garlic, lemon, and hierarchy. Camille lifted her glass. To success, to our girls making us proud. Her daughters beamed like an audience in training. Theo reached for his water, the plain glass, the symbol, and his hand trembled. I caught it beneath the table. "You're fine," I murmured. When I looked up, Camille was staring at me, suspicious. "You're quiet tonight, Venus. Everything okay?" I smiled with my teeth, not my heart. Perfect. She didn't know what to do with that answer. People who rely on your silence never know how to handle your calm. Mom drifted into a monologue about travel plans, summer homes, and things she assumed only their kind experienced. I let the words float past me. They weren't my world anymore. Jenna walked by. I caught her eye. I tilted my head barely. A code she'd learned working under me. She nodded and vanished through the kitchen doors. The moment sharpened. My heartbeat didn't speed up. It steadied. The storm wasn't coming. I was bringing it. Camille leaned back in her seat, satisfied and smug, while her daughters laughed beside her, unaware of the tectonic plate shift happening beneath the table. Let them laugh, I thought. They're laughing in the last minutes of the old order. Because once the chef walked out, none of them would forget this dinner. Time did that strange thing where it slows down, but everything gets louder. The kitchen door swung open. Chef Marco stepped out, tall, calm, the kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to command a room. Camille's smile faltered first. Something in her recognized danger before her brain understood why. Jenna followed behind him, gripping her notepad like a woman holding on to truth. I lifted my voice just enough. "Chef Marco," I called. "Could you join us for a moment?" Camille's laugh cracked in the middle. "Venus, what are you?" Just a quick introduction. Marco approached our table, respectful and steady. "Of course, ma'am. Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," I said. "I just thought my family might like to meet you." I turned to each of them, deliberately. My sister Camille, my mother Evelyn, my nieces, Ava and Riley, and my son Theo. Marco nodded. "Pleasure to meet you all." I looked at him with a calm that wasn't born tonight. It was born from years. "Chef, would you mind telling them your position here?" A flicker of confusion crossed his face, but he answered. "I'm the head chef at Meridian." "And who do you report to?" I asked. His eyes bounced from me to Camille, then settled on me again. "You, Miss Hale." The table goes silent. If sound were glass, this is where it shattered. The twins stopped mid-whisper. Mom's fingers tightened around her wine stem like she might crush it. Camille's face drained of every pretty color she'd painted on it. Wait, Camille stammered. "You mean she works here?" "No," I said gently, slicing through her sentence like a knife through silk. "I don't work here." I paused just long enough for the room to breathe in. "I own here." The restaurant stilled. Conversations dipped. People pretended not to listen, but they listened. 18 months ago, I continued, I bought out the investors. I let the truth settle like dust on untouched furniture. Every paycheck, every bottle of wine, every lobster that comes out of that kitchen runs through my signature. Camille's mouth hung open. Shock, embarrassment, and the beginning of fear. Mom found her voice first. "Venus, dear, this isn't necessary." "It is," I said. Because tonight you both decided to teach my son about knowing his place. I leaned back, not with arrogance, with truth. So, let's make sure we all understand exactly where we stand. Camille sputtered. I didn't mean. You said. I interrupted quietly. We don't feed extras. I watched the words hit her again. And people say insults fade. They don't. They echo. And Camille's echoed across the table in a way I'd heard my entire childhood, dressed in manners, sharpened by entitlement. So when I said the next words, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. Then you told my employee not to serve my child, I said. Every syllable landed like footsteps on cold tile. That wasn't a slip. That was you showing me exactly who you are. Theo's eyes darted between us, wide, flickering, caught between fear and a justice he'd never seen delivered on his behalf. I placed my hand on his shoulder. Don't worry, I whispered. We're done being extras. He swallowed hard, and something in him straightened. Like he realized this night wasn't happening to us. It was happening for us. I turned to Jenna. Could you bring my son a lobster platter? The truffle butter. And the chef's off-menu special. Whatever you think he'll love. Jenna nodded, relief softening her shoulders, pride lifting her chin. Right away, Ms. Hale. And Jenna, I added, bring him the good glassware. The kind reserved for people with names that mattered. Tonight, my son's name mattered. Camille's voice cracked like a hairline fracture in porcelain. You're embarrassing us. Still smiling, I turned to her. That's funny. Isn't that exactly what you tried to do to me? Her lips pressed into a thin, trembling line. Mom leaned forward, voice trembling. Venus, please. We're family. The words soured in the air. I turned to her, finally letting steel seep into my voice. Family doesn't sit quietly while their grandson gets treated like a stray dog. Family doesn't decide a child isn't worth dinner. Mom's face drained, aging 10 years in a breath. I looked at Chef Marco. Please make sure my son's meal is perfect. I want him to remember this night for the right reasons. You have my word, he said before disappearing into the kitchen. Murmurs rippled across nearby tables. Not judgment, recognition. Some people stared at me like I'd done what they wished they could have done years ago. Others stared at Camille like her world had finally been given a mirror. Camille sat stiff, her neck flushed a deep red. When Theo's meal arrived, it wasn't just food. It was a quiet crown. A full lobster, steaming, glossy with truffle butter. An off-menu special, and Marco himself setting it down. Enjoy, young man, he said. Theo's voice shook. Thank you. The twins stared at their plates, suddenly aware their crowns weren't real ones. Eat, Theo, I said gently. He hesitated, then took a bite. His shoulders dropped. It's really good, he murmured. I know, I said. It's yours. I lifted my glass, not a toast, but a warning. A claim. A declaration. Worth. Ours. Now and always. Camille's voice was a whisper dipped in accusation. You planned this. I shook my head. No. You planned it. You chose the restaurant. You chose the table. You chose the stage. I leaned back. All I did was turn on the lights. Mom covered her face with her hands. Please stop, Venus. I will, I said. After one more thing. I gestured for Jenna. Please bring the bill to my sister. Camille's head snapped up. Excuse me? This was your dinner, I said calmly. Your celebration. Your wine. Your lobster. Your spotlight. You wanted to be the host. Hosts pay. She scrambled for her purse, frantic. Venus, come on. Don't worry, I said softly. You can afford it. Her own words returned to her, sharp and humiliating. Success should be celebrated properly. Theo kept eating, quiet, but peaceful now, lifting his eyes to me seeking permission to smile. I nodded. His smile bloomed. Camille whispered, almost choking. This isn't fair. Fair. I tilted my head. You teach your daughters their main characters. You teach them everyone else is an extra. And tonight, They watched you learn what happens when the story changes direction. Silence swallowed the table whole. Theo took another bite, then looked at his aunt. "It's really good," he said softly. Her lip quivered. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Not to me," I said.
To him.
She turned to Theo. I'm sorry, sweetheart."
He didn't speak.
He just nodded once. Sometimes forgiveness is quieter than revenge. Mom sighed, defeated. "We should go." "Yes," I said. "You should." They gathered their things, awkward, small, suddenly ordinary, and walked out under a tide of whispers. Whispers that clung to them like shadows. When the door closed, the room exhaled. Theo looked at me. "Are they going to hate you now?" "Maybe for a while," I said. "But that's all right. I didn't do it for them." He nodded slowly, then smiled small, growing sure. Later, in the private dining room, Theo's plate half empty, he asked, "Mom, why did Aunt Camille call me an extra?" "Because some people think worth is something they get to choose," I said. "They're wrong." He nodded, tracing the gold rim of his plate. "You didn't yell," he said.
No.
"People like them expect you to lose control." I reached across the table, brushing a crumb off his sleeve. "The best revenge is reminding them you don't have to." His smile grew. Then, "I'm proud of you." I felt that.
Deep.
Be proud of yourself too, Theo. You didn't break. You stayed kind. That's what makes you the main character. We left Meridian near closing. The city lights smeared gold across the windshield, the kind of glow that felt like new beginnings stitched into the night sky. Some people spend their lives learning their place. Others build it, brick by brick, insult by insult, night by night. I built mine until no one could ever slide tap water across my table again. If you've ever been made to feel small, tell me where you're watching from. Good, I whispered. Now eat.